Secretly recorded from deep inside the bowels of a decommissioned missile silo, we bring you the man, one single man who wants to bring light to the darkness and dark to the lightness. Although he's not always right, he is always certain. So now, with security protocols in place, the protesters have been forced back behind the barricades and the blast doors are now sealed. Without further delay, let me introduce you to the host of Hutcast, Mr. Tim Hutner.
Thank you, Sergeant-at-Arms. You can now take your post. The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely those of the individual and participants. These views and opinions expressed do not represent those of the host or the show. The opinions in this broadcast are not to replace your legal, medical, or spiritual professionals. Welcome to Hutcast 9/20/24. Dr. Ealy, Dr. Henry Ealy, and he is the founder of the Energetic Health Institute, Fighters for Freedom, and Friend of God. He's on the show today. He's not in studio, but he is remote, and he did take his time today to talk to us about what he kind of knows, and I think we should probably be listening to him. So for Hutcast, stand by. We'll be right back with Dr. Henry Ealy, and let's get a handle on what's going on out there. Stand by. The current healthcare system is not meeting the needs of real people. People are demanding better care, better options, and want results. So Graith Care has launched and is advocating for those in the U.S. and internationally, as people are realizing the controlled system has not been there for them. If you want your own independent advocate that is not controlled by big corporations, call or text and enroll today to get your advocate for your needs, serving all ages. For any healthcare need you might have, you matter. Here's how you get started. www.graithcare.com, GRAITHCARE.com. Call Graith Care Direct 1-469-864-7149. Call or text a question to Healthcare Sucks and get an advocate with Graith Care. 1-469-864-7149. Mention Hutcast and you'll get a 10% discount on your advocacy bundle. And the staff at Graith Care will take care of you. Remember to mention Hutcast, get that extra 10% off your first bundle of time. And this is all brought to you from Graith Care. Okay, welcome back to Hutcast. We have Dr. Henry Ealy in our studio, remotely by phone. So we're going to try and make this thing work for us on the phone. Doc, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing today, Tim?
I am wonderful. Thanks for coming on the show. And I've been reading your bio, and holy cow, you got to be busier than just about anybody I know.
Oh, I have all the free time of every aristocrat in the world.
Good for you. And, well, your students call you Dr. H. Can we do that today?
Absolutely, please.
Okay. Because as a Hutcast, we're an H as well, so I'm kind of in tune with that.
Righteous.
All right. Okay. So if we were to spin this up, let's talk about you in a nutshell. Tell us your gig.
Well, I'm the founder of the Energetic Health Institute, an amazing school for amazing people, just like everybody in your audience. We teach natural medicine very proudly. We teach it from the standpoint of what we can prove. So very science-driven, but also relying heavily on clinical experience and relying heavily on really our ancient acquired wisdom from botanical medicines and herbalism to homeopathy to traditional Chinese medicine, and very, very heavily our foundation is God and prayer. But our foundation on top of that foundation is organic plant-based nutrition. And the idea being that if we can deliver to the body clean air, clean water, clean food, then the body as a self-healing mechanism will do the rest. Accentuate, accelerate, assist in that process. We also teach cell detoxification and full body cleansing, as well as fasting and a number of other things. But we are first and foremost teachers, and we like to encourage people to stop being patients and start being students, and they can do so at the school. I also lead a grand jury initiative with a great team of people, Senator Dennis Lincecum, Senator Kim Thatcher, Attorney Steve Jonkis, a fantastic team that features John Bodwin and Keith Wilkins and Albert Benavides and Kelly Mordecai and Judge Paul Nally and Brian O'Shea and Martha, just tremendous people that have been volunteering for over 3 years, pushing forward our grand jury petition in federal courts to ensure that the criminal data fraud and willful misconduct that has plagued our great nation for far too long is held to account. And I also lead an incredible research team of people who are recovering and people who are helping people recover from the multitude of bioweapon delivery systems that has led in just sadly a new Holocaust around the world.
Yeah.
So we're doing everything we can. I was called to service very early on March 12th, 2020. I've been in service for since really 2000. So we've been at this for a very long time. But I was called into expedient service on these issues on March 12th, 2020, and we've been working literally every day since. I haven't had a day off since March 11th, 2020.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a lot going on.
Yes, sir. We got to do his work, right?
Yes. Well, how do they say it? The righteous don't need any sleep, and how does that go? Oh, the wicked. There's no rest for the wicked, and the righteous don't need any.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I don't know. It's probably it's an old thing,
Yeah, I like it.
So let's spin up our first question here, if we can. Dr. H, you have an impressive and diverse educational background, ranging from mechanical engineering to neuropathic medicine. How do you feel these diverse fields intersect, and how do they inform you to approach health and wellness?
Well, it's a good question, and I think what engineering does is that it helps you understand and organize your thought process into systems and into creating opportunities for provable models. It's not enough to use conjecture or opinion or beliefs when we're talking about deeply understanding what's going on. So I've taken that education, and the mid step was morphing into computer programming, which I did for a number of years, which helped create another facet of organizational thinking in my mind, based upon the principles of neurosynaptic plasticity and some of the things we teach in our education at the Energetic Health Institute. But what you start doing when you get into natural medicine is you start seeing that there are some out there doing a fantastic job of organizing it and proving what it actually is. Folks like Joseph Pizzorno, Michael Murray, Tori Hudson, just some incredibly well-researched and published authors, Lise Alschuler, all naturopathic doctors, and all who can hold their own with anyone in the world when it comes to health and healing, and do so from not only a clinical background, but also a just well-researched, well-read review of what's actually out there in the peer-reviewed literature that hasn't been corrupted. So when I first got into natural medicine, it was very clear there was just a very few people doing that, and most people relying on, well, this is what we've always done, but we can't really explain why it works,
Right.
And so for me, that's not good enough. If we're going to teach something, we have to be able to teach it in a way that's easy to understand for students, and we have to be able to demonstrate reproducibility of proof of concept of results.
Sure.
All that matters really when you get down to it is that people who come to us feel better. That's it.
Right.
So if we stay focused on what our real mission is in doing God's divine work, then it needs organization, it needs order. God's system thrives on order. Chaos is what disease is. So I have been spending my career, last 25 years, organizing natural medicine into teachable thought processes and concepts so that It makes it very easy for a student to apply principles and not ideologies. And it makes it very easy for a student to organize new information into that structure as we learn more. Like, for instance, I never knew I was going to be studying EMFs. We're doing EMF testing and how to neutralize them in the homes right now. I never knew I was going to be talking about plasmids and plasmid curing compounds and CRISPR and how to disassemble, all of this really formidable bioweapon technology that they've developed. So, but that's where we are, and we need an organizational system to do it, and that's where I come in, organizing the chaos.
Right. And you kind of stepped on my next question, which is great because we're on the same page. With your Energetic Health Institute, you aim to teach people about God's divine design and a natural medicine. And you've elaborated on what you meant by how it impacts your teachings. And
right.
I don't know if there's anything else I could actually add because you literally laid that right out there for me. I didn't even have to. I just had to read the question.
well, I think when we get to medicine, Tim, it's been so corrupted and so bastardized that it's really medicine in name only, as most people understand it. When you go through the history of medicine dating back to Hippocrates, you start learning that there was a cult that existed called the cult of Asclepius. And they're still alive today. Everywhere you see the stick with a single snake on it, all over medicine, that's symbols for the cult of Asclepius. They're alive and well. They're what's on the World Health Organization symbol. That the intent is to have the cult of Asclepius rule the world, essentially, at least rule the health side of the world. And Hippocrates, what a lot of people don't know is Hippocrates was a practicing member of the cult of Asclepius until he renounced it. And he renounced it because it was a cult. It was a priesthood, and it wasn't steeped in what he could teach. And it wasn't steeped in the basis, which should be do no harm. So his actual commentary on first do no harm is actually a social commentary against the cult of Asclepius as he broke from it. And so then as medicine evolves, as you get into the 1500s, 1600s, really after the Dark Ages, 1700s, they adopt Hippocrates as their sovereign, as this is the father of medicine, right? You start hearing this everywhere. It starts becoming the philosophy of how we do things. Everything is natural. First, do no harm. Let your food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. And what happens is you start entering into this really golden age of health in the world. The golden age of health then gets taken over by the J.P. Morgans and the Carnegies and those folks in the early 1900s. And what ends up morphing out of there as they strive to put every natural person out of business is you get the rise of the allopathic side. And allopathic, by definition, means replacing one morbid condition for another morbid condition. Now, that didn't sell very well, so they instead changed morbid condition to side effect. So replacing one symptom for another side effect. And that's what you see in their medicine. They don't want you to be well. They just want you to not die quickly.
Okay.
Right. So for me, what I think we have to do is come into a new evolution of our thought process around medicine, what it really is. And I think that begins by saying, let's understand what we really do. And the easiest way I can conceptualize this for you and your audience is by asking a question of you. I've been at this for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with more people than I can count, buddy. And at this point, over the last few years now, we've been blessed to reach millions. How many people do you think I've healed in my entire career?
I'm waiting for the setup here. I don't want this to be a trick question, but I want to answer it accurately. I guess the answer is all of them.
All of them, right? Okay, well, that's beautiful. I wish that were true. But really, only God can heal all of them. Who I can heal in my entire career is one person, me. And when we come to that deep understanding of what medicine really is, it assigns responsibility with the correct person, and it then puts the doctor back into the correct role, the role that we're actually supposed to be in. Dosere, it's Latin, it means to teach.
Okay.
We're supposed to teach. And I can teach millions, but I will only in my entire career ever heal one person, and that's me. And that's where I think if we can get back into that, or reestablish, or just create for maybe the first time, that humility, the energy of that humility in all we do, then it brings us to a beautiful place where we start pausing again before we rush forward, and we question, certainly all these bioweapons that they're trying to masquerade as therapeutics. They're not
Right.
therapeutics. But what it does for us is it allows us to re-establish a covenant with the divine, and appreciate that it's the divine that really does all this amazing work for us. So,
Well, you touched on something here, and you got my attention here. You said bioweapon, which is going to shift gears to this next question. Are you ready for the next one?
I am. Let's do it. Yeah.
You're involved in quite a few initiatives related to COVID-19, including the COVID Grand Jury Initiative team. What led you to become so deeply involved in this issue, and what do you do? What's your hope for in the efforts of this? Where's your end game?
Well, we knew something was coming. You could see the landscape in the years preceding 2020, preceding COVID, the enterprise fraud known as COVID.
Right.
You could see that they were loosening regulations. They were changing the definitions for what a pandemic was. They were removing things that were going to allow them to just be completely subjective. And because we said so about any declaration. And for the decade leading up to COVID, I would have honest conversations. My students will tell you, we meet every Thursday. We do master classes every Thursday. They'll tell you, like, Dr. H was warning us that it's coming. Something's coming. We don't know what it is, but we had been hearing about Agenda 21 and all these other things, right? And so when they pushed the go button, it was pretty obvious that this was the go button.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what really sealed it was, okay, if this is really a surprise pandemic, why is every nation around the world acting lockstep? Why aren't some nations saying, no, we're not going to lock down? Why is every nation locking down? And then why the only nation that didn't lock down, why did they have the best results?
Oh.
And if this is really a pandemic, so you just have to ask questions. Why are people outside installing 5G towers, not in one city or one state, but globally, simultaneously? We've never seen that before. No, that's never happened in the entire history of the world. And so, you start putting these things together, you're like, all right, this is their power play for total control, right? And when you go in with your eyes open, and I think an open mind about going, look, there's a lot I still don't know, and I'm going to have to really be a student here and learn, which means I'm going to have to change my opinion of things in the presence of new information. My data-based background came up. I used to be a database developer and helped people design systems, helped Boeing Rocketdyne design systems for data analysis. And, with that mentality, I am really good at looking at data sets and knowing what's real data from fraudulent data. So we started mapping out in March of what the bell-shaped curve should look like, the rise and fall of COVID infections, hospitalizations, and deaths based upon what was happening in Italy and in South Korea, which were a couple weeks ahead of us in terms of the infective outbreak. And both of those countries had rises and falls of about 40 days. And so we were mapping out the United States one to predict, because I wanted to keep people calm, and say, hey, let's just trust in the vitamin Ds. I mean, we were the first ones talking about vitamin D and vitamin C and all the things people ultimately came to accept as
Right.
really great solutions. And, we saw something very interesting, Tim, in the data. There was a fall when the United States reached a peak, and then it started to fall, just like South Korea and just like Italy.
Okay.
But then about 10 days after the fall, we had a secondary rise. And I was like, whoa, why would it start rising again? We haven't seen that in any country. I was looking at this point at Iran and other countries that were publishing data through the World Health Organization. And we weren't seeing a secondary rise in any other country.
Election, perhaps?
Well, when you get a secondary rise, you have to explain it. And so we went in and we checked the CDC, and the CDC said that they had adopted something from the Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists. And you go, well, what's that? That is a independent nonprofit organization with no governmental authority or connection, supposedly, where the CDC offered 7 subject matter experts to define what constituted a COVID case.
Oh boy.
And in their definition of what constituted a COVID case, all you had to do to be counted as COVID was cough once. And you could be counted as COVID. No test was necessary. Just cough once, and now that's a COVID case.
Yeah.
When you look at that document, what also came out of that was that they specifically declined to make sure that a person couldn't be counted multiple times. So now you're into data fraud.
Oh.
All they had to do was say, hey, get your state-issued ID or your social security number when you're testing, and then we can put it in a database. And if a person gets tested 7 times in a week and 7 of them are positive, they don't count as 7 new cases, right? It's the most obvious thing to do. They specifically declined to do that. And when you look at that, you go, okay, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that now you've entered in a data fraud. Well, that took us down the rabbit hole of what are the legal requirements that they have to publish to the Federal Register and to go through a public review process, and the CDC didn't do any of that.
Okay.
The CDC did not go through a public announcement. They did not publish these changes in the Federal Register. They did not give notification so that there could be public comment on this for the mandatory 60 days.
So they fast-tracked their agenda.
They just simply went rogue.
Wow.
And that is against our laws. That's against the Administrative Procedures Act, the Paperwork Reduction Act, and the Information Quality Act at the very minimum. Okay? And that's evidence of criminal data fraud, intent to manipulate data to justify an emergency situation that did not exist. And in doing so, to defraud the American taxpayer out of what we could find as of our initial filing, $3.5 trillion in U.S. taxpayer funds. And with that comes a designation of willful misconduct. You have a designation of willful misconduct legally. What that now does is it opens up us to attack the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act and the PrEP Act, which are the 2 protections put in place to make sure that the pharmaceutical industry can't be sued when their products injure and kill people. So our end game is to dismantle this whole corrupt, evil system. That's our end game. Our end game is to put people who did this into investigation at the grand jury level and let the grand jury process that is supposed to be for the people, by the people, do what it's supposed to do, and determine whether or not there are indictments that need to be handed down, which in my personal view, there are many.
Oh boy.
And then to hold those people, give them their day in court and their trial by jury on the indictments, and to launch what would be considered a Nuremberg 2.0 inquest, but at this time, do it right. Make sure that everybody who's done wrong in every country is held to account, and that we as a world, as one people, say, no, this is enough of this Nazi nonsense. We're done with this, and it's time for us to create the world that we deserve to live in.
So as the executive producer for the conference of like COVID Con 21 and the Healing for the Ages, what are the messages or insights do you have or you want to aim to bring forward during these events?
Well, I think the first thing we want to do is remind all people that we are beings of light, and that as beings of light, we carry forward God's work. And when you're doing that, there's no reason to ever live a moment of your life in fear. And how do we do that? How do we eradicate fear? Through community and conversation, sharing of information and ideas that they've attempted to censor and suppress and label as misinformation, and that we bring darkness into that light, and we look at it and go, is this okay with us? I'm not okay with Ernest Ramirez Jr. doing what he thought was right after being lied to, and now he's dead. I'm not okay with Simone Scott doing what she thought was right. These are children that were just starting their lives that got these damn shots and are no longer with us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not okay with our elders dying alone in assisted living centers. I'm not okay with children taking their own lives because they were in such despair during lockdowns and
Right.
being subjugated with masks. I'm not okay with that. And I'm not okay with them installing 5G towers and injecting people with bioweapons and putting bioweapons in the water and disseminating bioweapons via weaponized bacteria that were created in the lab. These are all things we prove. And so what we do is we bring to the table the breadth of our research. And this is what Dr. Artis, Dr. Ed Group, and Dr. Jana Schmidt and I have done, I think, a really great job of, is bringing a challenging, even scary topic to the table, but doing it in a way where we can have honest adult conversations about it. And because we're also have done our homework and have found solutions to it.
Wow.
And when we put those two things together, we eradicate the fear and we build the community, we build the love. And that's what they don't want. They want us 6 feet apart, staying in 15-minute cities, living in our houses. Everything from our house will deliver everything to you. You never need to leave. You're in your own little self-induced concentration camp. No, we're not doing that. What we're going to do is we're going to dance and we're going to sing and we are going to hug and we are going to meet at our discretion. We do not get to decide for us how
Right.
our life will be.
Right.
And that's what we bring to the table. And that's what each of these conferences has been and will continue to be about, is us getting an opportunity to come together and share information from the heart for the betterment of all.
Wow. Dr. Artis on the show a couple episodes ago. His episode went out 1,200 hits in less than 10 hours. It was a huge, huge drop. I'm totally like, okay. But, we're in 70 countries counting. I don't know how many more, or maybe we dropped off some. And this is a worldwide message, not just a U.S. message.
Right.
And that's what I see. Okay. Okay, so you're the lead author of the manuscripts, including 444 pages per review, magnum opus, on a willful misconduct for during the 2023 COVID crisis. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
I didn't mean to butch that all up, but it's like there's so much to say there. And what inspired you to take on such a ambitious project? I mean, I get your drive. I get it. I respect that. But boy, I mean, this is a uphill battle.
Yeah, it is, because we've been asleep at the switch for decades. Yeah, it is. So we have a lot of cleanup to do. The reality is this: my lineage traces back to 1812, I think, in New Orleans, marriage license between two slaves. I was taught. My father is a professor of Black American history. So I was raised on Dr. Seuss, but I was also raised on reading and learning about Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and Nat Turner and Henry Stono and everything. My father did, I think, a beautiful job of letting me be a kid and also preparing me to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that was made very clear as you go through the history, and specifically Black history, but it's not unique to Black history. You'll find this in the history of the First Nations people and the women's suffrage movement, so many others, is that there are groups that often are subjugated, unfairly, obviously, but so that the chosen few can give crumbs to the minions that carry out their evil and create a caste system, a system by which it separates us.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read the stories of like Harriet Tubman, amazing things she had to go through, this at least 16 recorded trips going back to free people and being very clear with them. Like, if you sell us out, she was carrying a gun, I'll kill you myself, you know, and the stories of Frederick Douglass being a child and so desiring to learn how to read and know what other people knew, that he would give his food away to other children so that they would teach him how to read, knowing that if anyone found out he could read, he would be put to death. When you understand these stories and the fights for freedom, and you move forward through history into especially one of my favorite time periods for the United States, World War II, and you think to these incredibly brave men that got on these boats and knowing they were going to their death on Normandy and Iwo Jima in the Pacific Theater in North Africa, throughout Europe, and they did it anyway. You understand that there's something worth dying for. That is the freedom that God gives us. And if they did it, and so many before them did it, who are we to see that call, hear that call again, and not answer it?
Right.
And so I have told this story many times, that I'm in constant communication with God. And I promise I will not go before my Father. And he asked me, what did I do to protect his children? Say it was inconvenient, or
right.
I thought somebody else would do it. That's not happening. And I hope for all of us that, because it's not me by any long shot. I have no desire to be celebrated. All the glory goes to God. I hope that in our selfless acts that we all demonstrate, that it inspires people to take upon that yoke and be selfless as well, and understand that what is going on right now is greater than any one of us as individuals.
Sure.
And this right now, with their technology, is for all of it. This is the final battle, and we have to win it.
Well, now you know why I do the show. I'm on page with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never expected this kind of audience. It was huge. And I mean, who wants to listen to some guy in a missile silo somewhere in undisclosed location, right?
Right.
But they're tuning in, and they're getting it. And I'm in countries that shouldn't be, because they took Russia off our deal, and now we're in there. But, you know, you're bringing to a point, yeah, they need to hear this. And without big news, agendizing this and weaponizing this.
Right.
Okay, I don't want to cut you off. We are 30 minutes, 55 seconds into this one. I got to take a break, as you say, pay the bills. And we'll come back, and I've got another couple of questions. We'll be right back. In today's busy world, staying healthy and alert have become essential for those of us who want to get the most out of ourselves. So before you reach for that energy drink, ask yourself, are you really giving your body the best? If you want the energy without the jitters that commonly come from today's most popular energy drinks, then reach for something better. Reach for Super Fuel. Super Fuel is made by Casmo Incorporated. Super Fuel is a healthy boost. Super Fuel is made with vitamins B6, B12, and taurine, that is a amino acid that aids in weight loss and protects heart tissue. Beetroot powder and other healthy ingredients that will give you a quick, healthy boost. Make Super Fuel a great tasting, low-calorie addition to your daily regimen. Super Fuel by Casmo Incorporated. It can be ordered by visiting our website at www.superfuel.me or calling 833-383-5912. That's right, Super Fuel by Casmo Incorporated at www.superfuel.me or calling 833-383-5912. Super Fuel. Welcome back to Hudcast. Dr. H. Ealy, Henry Ealy, is giving us his insight, and I'll tell you what a moment of pause for everybody. Whether you're in Russia, and I know you're getting some of these transmissions, whether you're in Ukraine, whether you're in Australia, I don't care where you're at, this is making sense. So let's pay attention. I got another question for him here. And Doc, are you still with me?
Yeah, you're right here.
Okay. We are halfway through our questions, and I want to make sure that we keep it within an hour. So Your work has been covered by a range of media outlets. How do you think the media coverage has impacted the public perception of your work, and do you believe it helps or hinders your mission?
I think the free media has been tremendous. Folks like you, folks who are saying, look, we're just going to treat this what it is and give people a forum to share it, and you're trusting your audience to be the people who are going to discern whether what we're saying is actually accurate or not.
Right, not skewed.
Right, yeah. So the interesting thing with all that has been the response of the mainstream media for our work, and I think tactically they've actually been kind of brilliant at it. I have to give them some credit.
Define that.
You know, USA Today in 2020 attempted to engage us, and there was one of the writers. His name was Rick Ruin, and he started covering our first peer-reviewed paper, and he got some quotes from a few people that hadn't even read the paper, trying to dismiss it and trying to create the appearance of impartiality. So he reached out to me and he said, "Do you want to give a quote?" And I said, "Sure, I'll give you a quote that you can add into your article." And so I wrote him a quote that essentially encouraged people to review what we had said, or what we had published, and giving them the facts that it had been reviewed through 9 attorneys, a judge, that it had been peer reviewed by 2 people, and it went through a over 2-month peer review process, an extensive process that we went through. It's the most extensive peer review process I've ever been through, but for people to read it and come to their own conclusions. And so the USA Today writer Rick Ruin got back to me and he said, "I can't publish that." And I said to him, "Why can't you publish it?"
Right.
And he said, "Well, I think you know why I can't publish it." And I was like, "No, I don't know why. Why don't you tell me?" And he goes, "Well, why don't I do this? I can modify your quote and then I can publish something like that." And I said, "Rick, you know and I would know. It's a quote.
Yeah.
If you modify it, it's
not
no
a quote.
longer a quote." So
Pseudo quote.
I have this whole transcript between me. It was all through email, but they were attempting to, take us off the board early. And because I wasn't mean-spirited towards them or anything like that, I was just matter of fact, they couldn't do it. So tactically, what they did after that was they have ignored us largely.
No.
And I actually think that's the best thing to do. Like, we were deplatformed. The Energetic Health Institute was deplatformed without notice. We got 3 strikes in 2 minutes in November of 22. And so we had to move all of our assets over to Rumble. So we're really grateful to Rumble in that relationship, and grateful to people that helped us transfer everything so quickly. We actually got the whole school moved in a week, which blows my mind, actually. And, we've also, Facebook to this day will not let me log in. They haven't closed my account, but they won't let me log in. So they do some really smart tactical things with people like me. They give us a little bit of problems here and there, and ignore us largely. And I think that's probably their safest thing to do, because if you start shining light on us, people are going to see that we're really telling the truth and we can back it all up, and they don't want that.
Well, Hatebook's not going to really like this conversation, because that's my biggest platform. That's where I get my biggest audience.
Yeah, tell Zuckerberg I say hello.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, you've been certified in a wide range of fields like yoga, clinical massage, therapy, and American, I don't know if I pronounce this right, Kempo?
Kempo, yeah, American Kempo.
How do these certifications contribute to your holistic approach to health and wellness?
Well, I think it's our duty to move our booties, number one. So we are clearly beings that were meant to move. And I do far too much sitting in front of a computer that I just learned yesterday. Emits a whole bunch of EMFs. We got some EMF readers, and we're testing those things out, and we're going to find some solutions for everybody for that. But I think there's this really wonderful big world out there, Tim. And what we have done is we have allowed an addiction to screens, phones, TVs, computers,
Yep.
to open up this really big fantasy world for us at the expense of all this wonderful time that we can be spending out in the actual world where as God intended. I'm certainly guilty of that. I spend way too much time on
big time.
computers and phones and doing the work that we do. But I can tell you my heart is in nature. My heart is hiking or kayaking or just being out among the trees and being able to look up at the stars at night and appreciate that we're experiencing something that billions who've come before us have experienced and have fallen in love with. Like the gratitude for even being able to experience any of this at all, for any of it existing at all.
Yeah, but time changes that.
Right. Well, when you spend that time in there and you give yourself those opportunities frequently, like hopefully daily, to fall in love again with this wonderful thing we call life, it makes it worth fighting for. It helps improve our resolve and our desire to not work from a place of fear of, oh my God, what could they do to me? What could they do to my family?
Sure.
You know,
Be a sheep.
They're coming for you, right? Yeah, they're coming for you. So let's meet them on the field, right? I'm here to be on the battlefield. And that's where the American Kempo comes in and everything. Like, yeah, you want to fight? I'll fight you for it.
Yep.
I'll fight you for every single
Game on.
life of God's children on this earth. Are you damn right? I'll fight you for it.
Well, certainly got that fighter spirit, and that's the way it should be. You should never just be complacent to any government or any authority. And first of all, authority they don't have. It's your authority that they're using, and you can only give them the power in which they can use that authority against you.
Amen. That's right.
So with a career spanning over 25 years, what would you say some are the most significant changes you've observed in the field of natural medicine?
The most significant changes are the ones that we're working on right now. The work that Dr. Artis, Dr. Group, Dr. Schmidt, and myself are working on, and we're collaborating with Dr. Judy Mikovits and her wonderful team. And we have our research teams, and I mean, there's just so many people that are incredible. There's so many good people out there, Tim, that are dedicated and understand what's going on. I just got somebody, Vigilant Fox just sent me a text this morning saying, hey, dude, can you check into this? It was on hydrogels for somebody on Twitter. And I was like, okay, well, if Matthew at Rife feels like this is hydrogels, let's consider it. And so we did some quick research this morning before I jumped on the program. I was like, let's see what's out there on this. And we found two solutions. One is 2' mercaptoethane sulfonate.
Okay.
Which is a big, long, fancy word. It's basically something that's a non-toxic substance that we're looking for some natural analogs in, but we found there's a pharmaceutical that has it, and it's called Mesna, to break down hydrogels. And then we found another one, L-cysteine methyl, it's L-cysteine methyl something.
Okay.
But we found that one, and that's actually, there's a prescriptive product that's non-toxic as well. In my preliminary review, it has it being non-toxic. I'm not sure. I got to do a little bit more work on it, but it's called cysteine. But the first thought that comes to mind when I see it, it's a L-cysteine methyl. So what we would look at that as saying that's N-acetylcysteine, NAC, something we've been having people take for a long time, and something else we've been recommending for a very long time, trimethylglycine, which is, there you get the methyl, so you get the cysteine and the methyl, and it forms an ester. That's the last word I was missing. It's an ester.
Okay.
But what this does is it allows us to get into biochemistry, right? So that's one of my favorite things to do, is to go into biochemistry and see what's going on. And that's where sadly a lot of the horrific research is, on CRISPR technology and, oh my God, and gene drive and smart dust and hydrogels and graphene oxide and plasma. It's all these horrible, horrible things out there.
Right.
So I think the biggest advances we have made are really in the last 4 years in natural medicine. And that's what we're developing as quickly as we can, because as there are bioweapons being developed, there are always natural solutions. That's how good God is. And our job right now, and this is what Dr. Artis, Dr. Group, Dr. Schmidt, and myself have taken upon ourselves, is to find those natural solutions and understand what the therapeutic amounts are and how to deliver them in the best natural bioavailable ways, and to how to synergize them with other compounds and sequence them for therapeutic effect of basically neutralizing, inhibiting, dismantling this bioweapon infrastructure
Right.
that they've been developing and deploying. And we're very open about that, and we're very open that we don't have all the answers yet, but that the research literally continues every single day. I was texting all Brian and Ed and Jana this morning, and Ed's been texting me back while we've been on the phone. This is the work, and this is his work.
Mm-hmm.
This is God's work that we're doing. So, for us, like you said, we don't need rest. I'm in love with the work we're doing, and I think, Tim, we are going to ultimately figure out the theory for everything.
Well,
we're going to have the unified field theory for all natural medicine in this process.
Right. And let's let Hutcast help transmit that.
Amen. Yeah, we would love to. Yeah, please. We need it out there.
It's out there. And again, now we've touched on this one here about the social media, and I know that Facebook has shut you down, but there's other ways to get through Facebook, and there's always a yin for a yang. As someone who's been active on various social media platforms and international broadcasts, how do you think technology has impacted the reach, effectiveness of your natural medicine advocacy?
It's been good for us. We get to connect with more potential students, people who didn't know that we existed. And,
mm-hmm.
It's our job, and I take this job very seriously. It's our job to earn everyone's trust anew each day. It's actually a part of my prayer, my daily prayers, is to make sure that through our decisions and our actions that we exhibit and exemplify right action, straightway action that we is based on love, logic, and light, and that God would see fit to bestow His grace upon. For us, social media has been really helpful where free speech can occur. And I think that's something where Twitter originally had that. We're a little bit more skeptical of that since Elon brought in his new person. But
right.
Elon is also somebody that has pictures of him wearing the upside down cross, which is the symbol of Baphomet, which is the symbol of the Knights Templar, which is the symbol of the Ophites, the Gnostic Christian group, which is ultimately comes from the cult of Asclepius that we talked about earlier, and actually dates back into ancient Egypt and all the way back to Babylon.
Okay.
So, we've done, one of the fun things in this, Tim, is if you're going to really understand what's going on, you have to be willing to explore history.
Not cancel it, right?
Creation, right? You have to be exactly. You have to be able to, and that's why they want to delete history.
Sure.
For us, because it exposes the same playbook, and it exposes the continuation and how the Roman Catholic Church is being used right now, and for a long time, and how governments are being used, and it starts to expose a pervading power structure that we as one people can decide that we're done with this. We have the power. They need us. We don't need them.
There you go.
And I think that's where, you were talking, we sign the fronts of the check. I mean, we sign the checks, folks. And, I think it's about waking up people into the power that we really possess. And I can tell you this, you're never going to understand the power that you really possess if you're not healthy. if you're not bringing clean air, clean water, clean food into your body and helping your body do what it does best, which is heal itself. And that's the whole thing. I mean, when you get down to it, Tim, it's so sick, because this is all continuation of the Nazi experiments in Auschwitz and Treblinka and Buchenwald and all those places where they were at the extermination camps where they were studying mind control. That's what this all is. How to forcibly make someone do what you want them to do against their own self-interest and really against their own will.
We had a guest from Austria on the show. We called her Mrs. M in fear of her home area being demonetized from these people, from these Auschwitz people. Mm-hmm. And she connected what's going on today with what happened in 1939.
Absolutely.
And she gave everybody a warning. Now she's 90 right now. She's 90. We just had her birthday. And she says, you young people need to listen to what I've lived.
Exactly. They wanted all our elders dead.
Right, because that doesn't fit their agenda. Yeah.
Right, because Vera Shiraz and this M, they carry the wisdom of what actually happened.
Right.
They're authentic, and you cannot refute what they're saying.
Oh, it's real. It's as real. In 90 years, well, this wasn't 90 years then, it was like 3 years ago. She's in my studio talking about this. And she's 87 at the time, and she starts to cry.
Yeah.
My heart stopped. I thought, okay, we're just on the radio here, and she's living and saying about her life, and she's crying at 87 years after the fact.
It's a horrible.
That's a life-size pain that can never be left. And she's saying she's on this against, not against, but she wanted to teach these young people this is what really happened. So you got a whole lot of merit in what you just said there.
Amen. I mean, they couldn't pull off something like this from a technological standpoint, but also just from it was too recent standpoint in the 80s and the 90s. So what they started doing was laying the groundwork for it. That's where you see the second generation of bioweapons really emerging. It's the second generation of bioweapons starts emerging about 1968 to 1972. Mm-hmm. And that's where you start getting into genetically modified yeast, genetically modified E. coli, genetically modified plasmids as bioweapon deployment systems. That's where you start seeing chemtrails in the skies and the air release of graphene oxide and other toxic substances that once they get in the body provide them biofeedback capability and bioelectric capability. Then you also see in the 80s the introduction of GMO foods,
right,
modifying the food supply. And of course, the promise of the GMO revolution was we'll be able to feed everyone, which that was nonsense. We already could.
Right.
And
we're still not feeding them.
Right. And we'll also, Tim, be able to reduce pesticides. But only thing that's happened is pesticides have skyrocketed since the introduction of GMOs, because it was never about that. It was about polluting the genetic lineage of our foods and why it's so important for us to preserve heirloom seeds, things of this nature. And then you see them bringing in proton pump inhibitors and statin drugs, and you start, and they call them medicines. And my wake up to everyone is, folks, bioweapons have been around since the Alan Dulles in Operation Paperclip brought 1,600 Nazi scientists into the United States. Okay, that's what the Nazis were working on,
mm-hmm,
bioweapons.
Okay.
We are now in the third generation of bioweapons with CRISPR technology and gene drive and smart dust and hydrogels and self-assembling nanotechnology and quantum dots. These are things Dr. Group teaches about beautifully, right? We're the use of frequency and light. I mean, I did a whole expose on why you have to turn off the blue light on your phone and your computers and your screens at home, because it activates CRISPR. This is how good they've got. They can activate latent bioweapon technology in your body using frequency and using light. And it's all in their literature. I'm not just conjecturalizing and extrapolating. This is directly from DARPA that they can do this. So much so that, you know there's a problem, Tim, when their own scientists that are funded by DARPA are ringing the alarm saying, hey guys, I think we need to slow down on this CRISPR stuff, this gene drive stuff for a second. We don't know how to control it.
Sure.
And the thing about gene drive that's so terrifying, and I know there's people that disagree with me on this, and that's fine. We should have these conversations. But their published literature on gene drive is a guaranteed 100% extinction within 3 generations because they attack the female of the species.
Huh.
And they prevent, through genetic modification, the female's body from being able to reproduce. And it is guaranteed 100% in their literature termination. That's this first proof of concept is in GMO mosquitoes that are being released all around the world right now. They all contain gene drive.
Wow.
So we are at war. And I think we have to look back to World War II, and we have to grab hold of the great people who led us through that darkness. And I think one of them is Winston Churchill. For me, I love General Patton and General Eisenhower. I think those were men. And I love all the men and women that went, said, I'm going. I don't care what happens. I'm going.
Sure.
But Winston Churchill did something that was very unpopular. He was calling out Hitler when Time magazine was naming him Man of the Year. He was actively warning the world for years that Hitler was a problem and a psychopath. We would come to later learn that Hitler was an occultist and a Gnostic Christian, so not really a Christian, just a Christian in name only,
right?
And really worshipped, Baphomet and the devil and all that other stuff. So, one of the things Winston Churchill said that sticks with me, and I think is very relevant today for everybody listening, is that wars are not won by retreat. We are not going to be able to nice our way out of this. If that would have worked, we would have been done with this in 2020. We have to move forward as a people. And the way to move forward is with love, logic, and light. And what I have been urging people around the world to do, if they attempt to do new lockdowns, which I still don't think is going to happen. I think it was a distractor.
Sure.
Floated out there for everybody. I think
watch my left hand while the right hand's moving something. Sure.
Right. And I think that was because there's no reason for it. The reason for the lockdowns was to install 5G towers. Those have been installed.
And there it is again. You did 5G about 8 times now. We're gonna go back to that.
Okay, so when you get through all this, you understand that it is our duty to help each other. It is our duty to hold a line, and it is our duty to stand our ground against this naked aggression, and not give them the plausible deniability of it was a whoopsie. We couldn't possibly have known. We did the best we could. We thought it was a bat poop thing in a wet market in China. Now we know more 3 years later. Yes, you knew before it was launched, and Event 201 is the proof. All the work David Martin has done is proof. You have been planning this for decades, and our research confirms all of it. We can take it all the way back to 1948 in this country.
Wow.
Where the research starts and where it shows up in legislation called the 1948 Federal Water Pollution Act, which gives the government the right to seize control of all waterways and develop one of the 2 things that the Nazis wanted to use for deployment of their bioweapons for mind control: water treatment facilities. Control the water. You can dump whatever you want in it. It's going to come out of the tap. Nobody's testing it. Nobody's going to know. People are going to put it in their body, and it's going to poison them. The other delivery system, bioweapon delivery system the Nazis were big on, was vaccines. And it's not an accident that by 1950, you see aluminum being dumped into water all around the country. And it's not an accident that by 1954, I think, might be off a year. So you see the use of thimerosal mercury in vaccines, and you see the rise of the childhood vaccination program because they knew adults and especially elders who had already been through so much would never comply with forced vaccination. But if you tie childhood vaccination into their education and going to school and participating in sports, and if you freak moms out who go to the well baby visits by saying if your child doesn't get this, they're going to die.
Right.
And now you can get the moms to sign off on something, not realizing what they're injecting to their babies is a attempted murder, lethal concoction of the absolute worst carcinogenic and life-threatening compounds you could ever introduce into a child's baby. It's attempted murder every time a vaccine is administered to a baby. It is all you have to do to argue with me on this is go to the CDC's vaccine media and excipient summary, where you'll see aborted human fetal tissue, you'll see acetone nail polish remover, you'll see neurotoxins like different colored dyes, you'll see fetal bovine serum, you'll see thimerosal, aluminum, you'll see all of these toxic compounds that is confirmed to cause cancer and death and a variety of autoimmune conditions. You'll see them in there, and I'll ask everybody who wants to challenge me on this a simple question. If we were to put all of those ingredients, that concoction of evil, on a spoon, and we told a mom to give it to her baby, her infant, would we accuse that mom of attempted murder? The answer is yes. We would call that child endangerment. We would take baby away from mama because mom is literally trying to poison her baby to death. So why does it make it magically safe, putting it in a syringe and being charged money for it where it's made by companies that are completely immune from any type of civil litigation when their products injure and do kill children like Ernest Ramirez Jr. and Simone Scott? What happens then? Nothing to them, no incentive for them to improve the product, no incentive for government regulation to make sure it's actually safe and effective, no incentive to change the chemical composition for non-toxic components and make sure it's tested long-term for safety and efficacy. None of that's there. This is just a straight murder-for-profit scheme that has been going on ever since Henry Waxman, Democrat, California, authored the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act because, of course, the vaccine manufacturers were crying, well, our products injure and kill so many people that if we don't get this immunity protection, they're going to put us out of business. Yeah, that's where you're supposed to be when you develop medical products that injure and kill people out of business.
That's usually what happens.
Right? That's what's supposed to happen. Right? So
until now,
it's an ugly history.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of complicit people in the world who've gone along with it, and it's time to put it in.
So backing up here, I said you mentioned G5 a lot of times. Yep. Do you feel that the G5 subcarriers in that frequency or in that wave is I don't know, what'd you say? Is it as a trigger point? Is a mechanism? Could it be an on switch?
Yeah, it's definitively. From what our research has shown so far, Tim, is that 5G creates a frequency that causes small holes called nanopores through a process called electroporation in the outer membrane of cells, and including bacterial and yeast cells, but also mammalian cells. And with those holes that it basically punches in the outer membrane of cells, it creates the opportunity for the bioweapon delivery systems called plasmids to actually supercoil, twist up really, really small, and then get into the cell with a greater ease. So it improves a process known as transfection, which is basically a way of saying we are going to figure out how to infect a cell and to get past the cell membrane, which is an incredible defense mechanism. It's a major part of the cell's immune system, just like our skin is a major part of our immune system.
Okay.
It's a way to create little small nanoholes and get your bioweapons into those places that you want.
That's pretty deep.
Oh, they're brilliant, dude. I'm going to tell you, I didn't think they were this far along last year. I will never make that mistake again.
Never underestimate them, right?
They are way further along than my worst nightmares could have dreamt.
So let's plug your show a little bit here.
Sure.
So how do they find you other than Hutcast?
Well, The best way to find me and everything that I'm doing and everything we're doing is going to be to go to energetichealthinstitute.org, energetichealthinstitute.org, and it's the best place for people to start becoming a student. We have several radio shows that we do on America Out Loud, Talk Radio Network. Each weekend I do a show called Energetic Health, and it was designed originally to just be about health, but it's kind of morphed into whatever I want to talk about, whether it's grand jury or whether it's bioweapons or whether it's like I did a show this past weekend on prayer.
Okay. Right.
So we talk about whatever we want to on that show, and we bring a lot of special guests on and things like that. But we developed another show during the week called Looking for Healing Radio. And again, it's on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Networks. You can go to americaoutloud.com. And this one's really exciting because we have Dr. Jenna Schmidt, Nicola Burnett, who's amazing when it comes to healing people using like energy enhancement systems and things like that. And of course, Dr. Brian Artis and myself. And so Monday through Thursday, we'll all have our own individual shows.
Nice.
And then on Fridays, we all come together and we answer questions from the audience each Friday.
Brian's a good egg.
Yeah, Brian is such a good egg. So, so we get to have a lot of fun talking about medicine we love, God's medicine, and sharing it with the world, and hopefully imparting the feeling that the safest place we can be right now with all this evil all around us is in God's good graces.
Or an underground bunker location. That's pretty good too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, maybe. We're almost there.
The intro to my show is about humility, and a friend wrote it because he knows me pretty well, and he says, I'm not always certain, but I don't know, and I'm not always right, but I am always certain. And, it kind of adds, he's right. I mean, I speak my mind, and even if I'm wrong, I still speak my mind, and yeah.
That's right.
But we got to pull the pin on this show because we were like way up there, and thank you very much for taking your Sunday afternoon, and I'm going to get this edited for the show. It drops at 5. Anything you want to add to the people who are listening?
I think to everyone, the first thing I want to say is understand what the most powerful magic, light magic, that you have access to every day. And it's the most powerful three-word phrase that we have, and it's across all languages. Simply, I love you. That it's important for us to make sure we are saying that every single day to people that we love and hearing it back from people that love us. It's important that we make that our new norm. And to that end, I'll tell you, Tim, one of my favorite things I do every morning in prayer, I was just doing it before we jumped on this call. In my prayers, I end, my favorite thing to say every day is, I love you, Father, talking to God. And I don't leave that moment until I feel love from me. And I know when that emanates from me, our Father sends it back million, billion, infinity fold. I think that's what we're doing right now. Share his love in the words that we do. Is we give an opportunity for people to have the courage to love and make that their normal, and that becomes the light that will drown this darkness into oblivion.
Well, let's do something new on Hudcast. Why don't you leave us with one of those prayers? Would you do that for us today?
Oh, I will. It's a little long. Do you want me to give the long one?
Well, let's do the short one.
Short one.
Go ahead.
One. All right. So one of my favorite prayers right now, and there I use prayers from Christianity, from Islam, from Judaism, from a number of places when I understand where it comes from. I'm not religious, but I love God and deeply devoted as a friend of God. My favorite one right now comes from the Holy Quran. It goes like this. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer. Most gracious, most merciful. Master of the day of judgment. Do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose spirit is not wrath, and who go not astray. And what I've been instructed specifically by God to teach in this world in this time is that we have 4 opportunities. First opportunity is to take no offense when people are offensive to us. The second is to speak truth always and unapologetically. The third is to be selfless. There are always people in worse circumstances than we are. And then lastly, to remain humble, as all the glory goes to God.
Dr. Henry Ealy, folks, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, brother. And make sure if folks are reaching out, starting on Monday the 25th, they'll be able to purchase our replays for Healing for the Ages. And it was a conference of the century, folks. It's just, I'm so proud of it. I'm so grateful. I literally could not stop watching it, going through the editing process right now, getting everything ready. You're going to love it. Make sure you put in, let me get your promo code here. I think it's HUTCAST, HUTTCAST. Make sure you put in HUTCAST.
They did do that.
$50 off. Yeah, get $50 off it and get access to it, and it's a lifetime access to it. So, Tim, we're just really grateful to you and giving us a chance to share this with your audience. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And again, use the promo code HUTCAST, which is kind of cool. I didn't know they were doing that. I know they talked about it, but here we are. Okay, that ends it. Another episode of HUTCAST. Hopefully we've enlightened you beyond enlightenment, and you share that with your friends. Like us on Facebook. Like us on Twitter, X, or whatever it is now. We're on all of them. And be well. Until next time. And that's a wrap for HUTCAST. HUTCAST is, again, a pragmatic approach to seeing things how some people see them. If you like our show, give us a thumbs up on the Facebook site. Again, for HUTCAST, thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.